Hello everybody and welcome back once again to the Brawl for All Pro Wrestling Show. I am your host, Jeff Jaros, as always, and as I said, episode 7. If you haven't listened to the show already, go back and check out all 6 episodes. We have a lot of good views and good opinions. I'm hoping for a call here from my friend Jeff Crow, who usually co-hosts the show with me. It's kind of late tonight. He hadn't got on here right off the bat, but I'm hoping that he will call in here soon, and we can get him on the line and give his views as we go about the show. A lot to talk about tonight. The WWE Hell in a Cell pay-per-view was last Sunday, and it turned out to be a pretty mediocre pay-per-view in my opinion. Wasn't the greatest show I've ever seen, and it seems like ever since the WWE Network has came into play with the free pay-per-views for $9.99 a month, no pun intended, it has just not been the greatest pay-per-view that you can get for your money's worth. I feel sorry for anybody who actually paid the full price for any of the pay-per-views they've shown on the network. WrestleMania was good. There actually has been a few others I can't even think of that have been alright, but none the greatest. So, getting into WWE Hell in a Cell, and if we get the call from Jeff, we'll just cut right in to where we're at. But getting into WWE Hell in a Cell, it kicked off on the pre-show with Damien Mizdow doing Mizdow TV, which was okay. It had some funny imitations in it. His guest was The Miz. Had some sort of tension between him and The Miz, which has been building up lately. It seems to me that Mizdow ultimately will turn on Miz, and when he does, they are setting him up for a great face turn, in my opinion. So I'd love to see that. So the Mizdow TV was what it was. And then they went on to the pre-match, which was Mark Henry against Bo Dallas, which was a quick squash, in my opinion. And after that, Bo said he wasn't ready, so Mark went down to the ring and threw him around a little bit. He didn't have another match or anything, but he just threw him around a little bit. I think he may have thrown him into the stairs. To get the pre-match was a bonus on the WWE Network. So if you have the network, that was a bonus that you got the Mizdow interview and the pre-match squash between Henry and Bo Dallas, which they're building up Henry big, as you will see the next night, in a different way. So, the next match from there, onto the main card, was the match that kicked it off that I thought was one of the show stealers, which was the Ziggler and Cesaro 2 out of 3 falls match. But I did not like the fact that Cesaro lost 2 of the 3 falls in the match. It did have a very old school feel with the 3-fall format. Cesaro came out with a new look, the cleanly shaven look that we talked about last week that he desperately needed. Ziggler won the first fall, and I understand Ziggler being pushed, but 2 falls to none, I really didn't understand. So Ziggler retained after the zigzag for the second fall. So for the kickoff match, it was really a good match that we got to see between Ziggler and Cesaro for the IC title, but I just wish that Cesaro could have had at least a win in there to get some respect. Cesaro with the clean look, looking a lot better. As I said, WWE likes that clean look a lot more. So, therefore, I thought that match was pretty good to kick it off. Then we went on to Nikki versus Brie Bella. It was a pretty good women's match. Had a few good, nice spots. Nikki won after 2 rack attacks on Brie to make her personal servant for 30 days. Which we implied. I thought Brie was going to become was going to be the winner here and have Nikki as her servant, but it ended up the other way around with Nikki winning and Brie ultimately being her servant for 30 days. So let's see where that all goes. Not good news for Daniel Bryan. Maybe a reason that they switched it over for a Nikki win, but as I said, lately they do seem to be pushing Nikki as her main wrestler more than Brie. I think they like her skills a little more. So, going on from there, we had the Usos against Golden Stardust for the tag titles. We got a tag title match. And it was Golden Stardust retaining the title. It was a spinning neckbreaker finisher from Stardust. I don't know what he calls that variation of a finisher, but that's what he hit on one of the Usos to ultimately win the match. I think we both called that Gold and Stardust have a good run going, and they weren't going to drop them to the Usos. I think it's time for this feud to kind of end, though, and if you see the next night on Raw, they did have some different opponents, but they could keep the feud going. It does seem like the feuds have been going a little longer lately in the WWE. So, on from there, you had, it was the fourth match of the night. It ended up being Cena versus Orton in the Hell in a Cell, and it was not the main event match, which means they will not have Cena's 100th main event match, which we reported would be the 100th match if they were in the main event, and they decided to go ahead with the Young Guns, Ambrose and Rollins, for the main event instead. Cena won it as he blocked an RKO and then ultimately F5'd Randy Orton through the table for the win. Cena becomes number one contender once again to Brock Lesnar's title, which is rumored to be going to be held at the Royal Rumble this year. So, we get to see Cena Lesnar 3. Not sure if I really am big on seeing another Cena Lesnar match. Actually, this is the fourth match that they will have. They really never, ever bring up his first match that they had when Lesnar first came in back into the WWE in 2012. So they never really mentioned that. So if they would mention that, this will be their fourth match. But they're going to actually say this is Cena Lesnar 3. So it seems like the first year or so that Brock was in there just didn't kind of count. It was a pretty decent match, but for a Hell in a Cell, it's just lacking with not being able to blade. The spots are lacking. They didn't want to overshadow the upcoming main event match between Ambrose and Rollins with any real dramatic high spots, in my opinion. So they did what they had to do. Solid match from Cena and Orton, in my opinion, but not enough to make it a great pay-per-view or a must-see match. Sheamus versus Miz with Mizdow for the U.S. title. Sheamus was able to retain his U.S. title after a bro kick on Miz coming from the top rope. Mizdow is so over. Throughout the entire match, there was a Mizdow chants. He was hilarious the entire time. So Sheamus retains the title over Miz, and I think I wanted Sheamus to win that match because ultimately Miz would be not my favorite U.S. champion, to say the least. And I think I forgot to mention that I think Jeff may have had Cena. I had Orton winning the match, so we'll have to go back and check on that again, but I'm not sure, but I wish he was on here right now so we could go over who he had. I think I had an Orton win, setting up maybe a possible triple threat, but it did not end up being the case as Cena gets the win. You had Rusev versus Big Show. I called this as Show tapped out to the Accolade. Henry came down, actually just sat there after he got kicked off the apron and saw Rusev ultimately lock in the Accolade and get the win. So it kind of set up some tension there between Henry and the Big Show, which ultimately would come to a head the next night. So Rusev keeps his undefeated streak alive as he wins by Accolade. Finisher, camel clutch variation. I called this actually on the last show. Rusev's push keeps going, and you'll see that they're going in another direction instead of Big Show the next night. But as much as I have to say about the match, not very great. Just what I expected. The next match you have is AJ and Paige for the Divas Championship. I'm pretty sure it was for the Divas Championship. I didn't have it noted. AJ tapped Paige out to the Black Widow. Paige was pissed at Alicia Fox and said she hated her for leaving her in the ring, and ultimately, I think attacked Alicia or did something. I don't know, some hatred there between Alicia Fox. I'm not real keen on what actually happened at the end of that match. I do have it noted that she was pissed at Alicia Fox. So AJ taps out Paige once again, so we see that feud probably keep going for a few more months as Total Divas rolls on. Ambrose Rollins in the main event match, which was the second Hell in a Cell match of a night, was pretty dang interesting in my opinion. a little bit of something that I did not expect to happen. I did have an inkling that maybe Bray could show up during Hell in a Cell at some point in some way, as Ambrose was getting ready to try to head stomp, or curb stomp, I'm not Hogan here, trying to curb stomp Rollins. A cryptic message started playing, which we didn't know actually what it was, some kind of French or talking in tongues or what, but it ended up being a reported promo that they played in reverse. It started playing over and over as the lights went out, and then as the lights went on, he hit it was Bray Wyatt standing there, which hit Ambrose with one of those standing rock bottoms that he does. And then Rollins rolled over and took the pin for himself afterwards, so he ultimately wins the match. Wyatt stuck around, stared at the lamp, got into the corner and did that little spider walk and everything. He ended up hitting the Sister Abigail on Ambrose, and Hell in a Cell goes off the air with Bray Wyatt looking pretty strong going into a feud. So you would think the next night coming back would be a huge storyline between Ambrose and Bray Wyatt. But ultimately, as we move on to Raw, that's not really what happened. I don't really think that they capitalized on the feud as well as they could have. They could have capitalized on that feud and made it the main focal point of the show, but instead they decided to go another route. As the Authority came out at the beginning of the show, putting over Seth Rollins, but there was no Orton along with the Authority, is what I first noticed as I was watching this with my co-host Jeff Crow. He started celebrating, but Randy Orton ultimately came out and said he had a problem with the whole thing. He said that Rollins was not the future, and he heard about losing Cena last night, but it was probably Rollins' fault for curb stomping him. Orton flipped out and said that he made a promise to deal with this himself. Threw a few swings at Rollins before they were separated. Triple H screamed at him to calm them down, and he said they weren't doing this tonight, and he said that Orton could have the night off and that they will deal with this another time. Orton runs right past Triple H and takes Rollins out with an RKO, and then he rolled out of the ring, and Triple H just didn't look happy. It was a pretty good setup for the main event, actually setting up Rollins and Orton down the road as well, because Rollins and John Cena was announced as the main event that night too. In my opinion, it was a good setup for the main event to kick off the show. Orton looked cool as he came out, possibly turning face. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I think he may have possibly turned face during that segment, so we'll see where that ultimately ends up as we go on to the next segment, which was Big Show and Mark Henry against Golden Stardust for the tag titles. Really, the only thing to mention here is that Golden Stardust got the win ultimately. Big Show ended up knocking out, hitting I like to call it the weapon of mass destruction, but they just call it the knockout punch on Stardust. And then Henry called for the tag, so Show and Henry started to argue, and then Henry just picked him up and hit the world's strongest slam, hence a good heel turn there. And then he threw Stardust on him to make the cover. Henry waited for Show to get up and ended up hitting 3 world's strongest slams on Big Show. We have talked about this ultimately happening for a while now. We knew the Henry heel turn was coming, and I had a feeling that this was the time that he was going to make that ultimate heel turn, and he did, hitting the 3 world's strongest slams in a row. Pretty good segment there, because it did have some meaning to it. Next match, not really interested in. Alicia Fox, AJ. This match ultimately ended up with an AJ Lee win. And this is actually where Paige went off and attacked Alicia Fox as she threw her into the barricade, kicked her, repeatedly slammed her head into the barricade, screamed that Alicia was a terrible friend and that she had no friends. So now Paige, once again, right back on her own. But AJ Lee ultimately got the roll-up on Alicia Fox for the win. there's a continued feud between AJ and Alicia, and it'll be interesting to see if they get Paige involved in that too. So we'll see what happens, but not much on that segment right there happening, except for Paige attacking Alicia Fox, which I actually called during the pay-per-view segment, and I was wrong. It was actually during Raw where she ultimately attacked Alicia Fox. It's hard to keep all this stuff straight. Next, you had a segment that actually almost put me to sleep. It was John Cena coming out and talking about Seth Rollins in the future. He says he's going to beat the future. Stephanie cut him off. Stephanie started talking about Survivor Series. She actually booked a Survivor Series match between Team Cena and Team Authority. I'm liking that they're going to book a traditional Survivor Series match. I'm interested to see who's going to be on Team Cena and who's going to be on Team Authority. Cena and Triple H. Ultimately, maybe a feud here in the works between these two. That could be a good Mania match. So maybe it sets something like that up down the road. Actually, this segment was really weak. Triple H came out and said he's been there longer than Cena. It keeps getting harder, and Cena's squeaking by, but he can't fight the future. Triple H doesn't have to be this hard, and he can't stop the future, so if he wants to work against them, then he will make an example of him. He says Cena can try and find a team to support him, but the future will go through him, whether it's tonight or at Survivor Series. So it kind of sets up for the end of the night, too, as well as Survivor Series there. So it's Team Cena, Team Triple H at Survivor Series. Next, we go to the Usos against Damien Sandow and The Miz. This match, not much to talk about. It was a pretty good, solid match from the Usos, which usually the Usos always have pretty good matches. But the tension between Sandow and Miz, in my opinion, keep growing. As Sandow tried to get involved, but Jimmy ended up rolling up Miz as he was blocked from hitting a skull-crushing finale, and it kind of set up a little tension in my opinion, and I just think the job's coming there for Sandow. They're liking how he's getting over and how he's doing, so the Usos with the win. And then they had the Hulk Hogan segment where he came out plugging the Komen Foundation. Seems that's like all they're using him for is to push the Komen Foundation. I really hate that pink that he's wearing out there, you know. Hey brother, I'm really fighting for the breast cancer awareness, brother. And I'm wearing the pink to prove it. It's like nobody else has got pink to wear except for Hogan out there. Like, he's the only one supporting the Susan B. Komen, I think is what it is, foundation. I know it's the Komen Foundation. It's Susan G, Susan B, I can't remember. But, yeah. Not really digging the whole Hulk Hogan ambassador for the Susan Komen Foundation, but having him out there really does kind of help ratings, in my opinion, somewhat. So, not much more to say about that. Going on from there, you have Bo Dallas wanting to take on a mystery opponent. The mystery opponent is none other than the big guy Ryback in his return. I claimed that Ryback reportedly was set to make a return, but they didn't know what to do with him, and it looks like he is going to be pushed as an ultimate face due to the lack of good baby faces. He tore a hernia. It looks like they're going to start pushing him immediately as he destroys Bo Dallas, hits a meat hook, hits a shell shock for the win. So it was good to see Ryback back in a role that I think that he was kind of forced out of before whenever he was in the Ultimate feud with John Cena, and they made him do the heel turn. I think he never did regain the momentum that he lost after that. So it was good to see Ryback. It was good to see Ryback back in action, and I wish him well and hope that they actually use him right this time as a face. He would be a good addition to Team Cena for sure. So, the next match would be Cesaro against Dean Ambrose, and I have to mention that the match from Friday Night SmackDown on the Halloween edition was really good. I haven't belly laughed like that for a long time with some of the spots they did. It was better than the one they had definitely tonight, which was cut short because of Bray Wyatt cutting him off and appearing on the Titantron, kind of saying the world isn't made for them and he's not Ambrose's friend, but he sees that they will help him, and then he tells them to run. So that match resulted in a no contest after that. I'm loving the Bray Wyatt Dean Ambrose feud, but I hope they don't mess it up. These guys both can talk really good, and I have been just dying to see these two in a singles feud, and I just hope they don't mess it up. It just doesn't seem like they really cared about this segment tonight. It was kind of pushed to the side, and for the Cena versus Team Triple H storyline instead, which I think Ambrose Wyatt should be the main focal point of the storylines for WWE right now. It's going to get that younger audience. It's something different that you haven't seen before. It's getting passed over by the Survivor Series storyline, which I think is a bad mistake, especially since they had it finish off the last pay-per-view. Next, you had Nikki Bella, Naomi. Nikki Bella with the win, and as I said, I think they're going to keep pushing her. Not much more to say about that. The next match, Kane, Dolph Ziggler. Actually, Dolph Ziggler gets a win in this match. Actually, he got a clean win in this. So Seth Rollins runs out and hits Dolph from behind, and then Kane goes for a chokeslam, but John Cena made the save to clear the ring. So after Dolph Ziggler gets the victory over Kane, it looks like that him and Cena will be teaming up for Team Cena. It looks like that's kind of what they set it up for, to give Ziggler that real babyface rub, having a guy like Cena come out and save him. So not much more to say about that match. As we went on to the main event, John Cena, Seth Rollins in the main event. This match started out pretty good, but then they had the run-in. It was ultimately made a disqualification by John Cena as Kane ran in, and then Dolph Ziggler came down to make the save, and then the whole Raw locker room ended up running out to the ring. And I really hate when they have these endings with everybody in the locker room. It makes it look... I just don't like the way it looks. You know, there's a lot more guys on the roster that end up coming down there to save him. I know they can't all be there, but they always say, like, the whole roster's out here. But you just know it isn't. John Cena ultimately wins by DQ, as I said. Rollins retreated as Triple H and Stephanie watched from the ramp as it went off air. It was a decent show. Other than the Cena storyline almost putting me to sleep as I read back over it, it was decent as it moved along a lot of storylines, and everything kind of had a meaning this time. Other than I'd like to see a lot less diva stuff going on. So it doesn't look like we're going to get Jeff here unless he calls here in the next 10 minutes or so, but I've got to keep going because I got to get this episode done. So I'm sorry to Jeff, and I'm sorry to anybody out there that wanted to hear what he had to do for input. Stephen Lane, he may be back at further notice, but right now, just personally, he hasn't been doing the show. And it's all good. Since I am the main host, if both guys can't tune in, I'm going to try my hardest to go through the show and give you guys an entertaining show regardless and let you know the results and the news. I'm not going to skip a week, but I hope you all tune in just the same. Next week on episode 8, I hope to have Jeff back. I know we're watching Raw together tomorrow night, so maybe we might try to do something live right after Raw tomorrow night or something, but I'm glad that I got episode 7 done. I had to get it done tonight. Going on to the news, rumors, notes, WWE to move the Elimination Chamber to help set up SummerSlam in August from its current spot, which is a couple months before Mania. I think it's February right now when they have it. A note, Mojo Rawley in NXT underwent successful shoulder surgery, so good luck to him on getting back. ROH said to be releasing action figures through Figures Toy Company. Pretty cool. I am an action figure fan, so I like to see ROH's action figures when they are released, and may pick up a few if I could, possibly. Steve Austin, Stone Cold, apparently has signed an apparel deal for Broken Skull Ranch. They are also making wrestling-related Austin-era t-shirts, which I have seen, which are pretty cool. And this is kind of rare that the WWE is allowing them to do wrestling merchandise, so we'll see what happens with this. Austin and WWE must have come to some kind of agreement to allow them to do the wrestling shirts. I'd like to pick up one of them too. Punk and WWE, speaking merchandise, have also made some kind of deal, as they have recently started selling CM Punk merchandise once again, as they had previously pulled all the Punk merchandise. So Punk and WWE have had to have recent contact considering apparel and merchandise. So merch is a big thing. I can see CM Punk coming back. I just see with AJ still there, unless she gets out of there, that Punk always has a chance to come back to WWE. Undertaker, big news. He will be taking a behind-the-scenes job with NXT in a limited capacity to help develop stars and get him up to the main roster. I think this is a good role for the dead man. Does this mean that he is done at WrestleMania 31? I don't know. But I could see him wrestling at WrestleMania 31 still, even though he's doing this job. Working behind the scenes at NXT in a limited capacity may give him a lot of time to be able to maybe capitalize on some in-ring training, get into good in-ring shape to make that one last match a lot memorable than the one with Brock. It just seems like he wasn't in the greatest shape in that match, although I can't say that he wasn't. He just looked a lot older than he had before. So Undertaker, behind the scenes at NXT, that's really cool and really exciting for the NXT guys. Really excited to see Finn Balor, Kevin Steen, and others. Just talking about Kevin Steen, it seems like he is rumored to debut as Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens was trademarked recently by WWE, as they've been trademarking all kinds of things like Eve Torres even, so we don't know what's up with that. Brad Maddox has been trademarked. They have trademarked several things, but Kevin Owens is one of the things. They said that Kevin Owens is going to be the name due to his son, which is named after Owen Hart. It'll be some kind of a trademark. It'll be a tribute to his son, which is named after Owen Hart. I'm really looking forward to seeing Kevin Steen performing in NXT. The announcement that Dixie Carter is teasing is reported to be the new Angle contract for TNA, and it seems like any negotiations with WWE are over due to being unable to work the full-time schedule. Body-wise, mind-wise, whatever, Kurt Angle seems to be going back to TNA. The ratings for WWE Raw this week, which I forgot to mention, they were up from last week, the first 2 hours, but dropped considerably the last hour, and it was the second lowest watch of the entire year on Raw. And while Hell in a Cell gave WWE a numbers boost, they still had bad news due to that third hour, which marked the fourth consecutive week, which is the entire month of October that they've been under the 4.0 rating. So WWE really looking bad. I'm saying NFL's killing the ratings, but there also are talks that WWE is in negotiations of a possible sell of the company. I don't know. That's just a rumor right now. We would keep up and see what they keep saying about that, but WWE does not look like financially in the best, even dropping in stock. They actually had a third quarter net loss of $5.9 million compared to a net of $2.4 in the third quarter of 2013. Orton was pulled from the upcoming European tour and being replaced by Wyatt. He will be taking on Y2J instead of Orton for the tour. Other news, TNA is in talk with several parties in search of the best home for TNA Impact in 2015. Chavo Guerrero, John Morrison, Ricochet, a.k.a. Prince Puma, Vampiro, Striker, Banderas, who has also another name too. They are all appearing on the debut episode of Lucha Underground on the El Rey Network. I want to see John Morrison actually wrestling as Johnny Mundo. Reigns is being advertised for December shows. This is the first time he's been advertised since coming back. Axel worked a dark match between Main Event and SmackDown. I have to say that the Y2J part of the WWE Monday Night Wars documentary was really good. Therefore, we have came to the conclusion of the Brawl for All Pro Wrestling Show, Episode 7. Be back next week with Episode 8. Until next time, have a great one, guys, and I'll see you next week.